morning, everyone. Thank you for being here and taking the time to join today's focus group discussion. My name is Naurah, and I will be moderating our discussion today. Today, we are focusing on a topic that has become highly controversial and widely discussed in Indonesia recently, the proposal to grant former President Soeharto to the title of National Hero. As we know, this issue has sparked strong reactions, both from groups rejecting the idea due to concerns about human rights violations and corruption, and from groups supporting the nomination by emphasizing his contributions to national development. Because of these contrasting views, this topic gives us an important space to reflect on how we define heroism, how we interpret history, and how state recognition shapes public memory. Before we begin, I would like to outline a few ground rules to ensure this discussion runs smoothly. 1. Respect every viewpoint. Agreement is not required, but respectful listening is. Number 2. No personal attacks. Please focus on the arguments, evidence, and ideas, not on individuals. 3. Speak one at one time. With those guidelines in mind, we can begin our discussion. To start, I would like to invite anyone who feels ready to share their initial thoughts or arguments regarding to the proposal of Grant Soeharto the National Hero title. The floor now is open. Feel free to begin.
Firstly, I have some notes here. For me, the biggest impact of this proposal is on Indonesia's collective memory. When we give someone the title of national hero, we are not honoring them, but also shaping how the whole country remembers the past. And in Soeharto's case, this is a really big deal, because his era is full of both achievements and controversies. If the government officially calls him a hero, many young people, especially people our age, might focus more on the development side of his leadership, like economic growth, stability, or infrastructure. Meanwhile, the negative parts, such as authoritarian control or censorship, might slowly get pushed aside. So the balance of our historical memory can change a lot. Another impact is that this title can create a kind of official narrative. When the state labels someone a hero, it becomes easier for society to accept that version of history. Over time, this might make the darker parts of the new order feel less important or even forgotten. And honestly, that's dangerous, because history should be remembered as completely as possible, not just the parts that feel comfortable. I think this is matter for our generation. 2. Many of us didn't live through the new order, so we only learn from school and social media. If the hero title is given, it can replace a very complicated story with a simpler one, and future students might grow up with a biased perspective. So for me, the real impact is not only about Soeharto himself, but about how the whole nation chooses to remember its past. A national hero title has power. It can change the way we talk about history, the way we judge leadership, and the way we understand what kind of values we want for our future. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you for that perspective. You highlight how this decision could reshape the nation's collective memory. Now let's move to another participant. Yes.
For me, the most important impact is related to human rights and the people who suffered during the New Order era. When we talk about Soeharto, we cannot ignore that there were many human rights cases like the 1965 tragedy, the forced disappearance in 1998, and various forms of political repressions. These events are a real part of history. If Soeharto is given the national hero title, it can feel like the state is choosing to prioritize his achievement over the suffering of the victims. For the families who lost people or who were traumatized, this can feel very painful. It's almost like saying their experiences don't matter anymore. And to me, that's very serious impact. Another point is that Indonesia has never fully complete its process of reconciliations. There has never been a full truth-telling or justice system for what happened during that time. Giving the hero title now without solving those issues can make reconciliation even harder. The victims might feel left behind again. I also think it affects the country morality. If we honor a figure who has both good both good and bad sides, especially with heavy human rights concerns. Then it raises questions about what value Indonesians want to represent. Are we putting development above human dignity? Are we sending a message that rights are secondary? So for me, the impact is emotional and ethical. It affects the victim, it affects our moral standards, and it affects how we talk about justice in Indonesia. That's for me.
Thank you so much for bringing up the human rights dimension. That adds an important emotional and ethical layer to the discussion. To continue, maybe we can take a look at how this issue might affect public trust and institutional credibility.
Okay, I think in my opinion, the main impact is on the credibility of the government and the institution involved. A decision like this is not just historical or political, and the public will always question whether it's truly objective. When people see a controversial figure being considered for a national hero title, they will wonder, is this based on real historical evolution, or is there political pressure behind it? If the public feels that the process is not transparent, trust in the government can decrease. This is important because trust is the foundation of how people interact with the state. When people lose confidence in institutions like the Ministry of Social Affairs or the Council of Titles, it affects not just this case but future decisions too. The public may become more skeptical and less cooperative. Another impact is on the reputation of the national hero system. If a figure like Soeharto can be considered, people might ask, what are standards? Are the criteria still meaningful? When the standards look like unclear, the system loses respect. So overall, I see the issue as something that affects public trust. Decisions about national heroes should be clean, objective, and transparent. If people feel they're not, then it can weaken the authority of the state. Thank you.
Thank you for explaining the institutional concerns and questions around transparency. That gives us a clear view of the political implications. Next, let's explore how this proposal could influence the standards behind the national heroes title.
Okay, so thank you. So I'd like to talk about how this affects the meaning and standards of the national hero title. A national hero is supposed to be someone who not only contributed to the country, but also represents strong moral values. Soeharto definitely contributed to development, but he also has a legacy filled with corruption and human rights concerns. So if the government still decides to give him the title, people might think that the standards are becoming flexible or even inconsistent. It's like saying achievements can erase wrongdoing. This can make the national hero title lose some of its symbolic power. Instead of representing clear ideals, the title might start to feel political or unclear. Future nominations might also become controversial if people think the standards are no longer strict. So for me, the impact is on the clarity and integrity of our national values. A hero should be someone we can admire completely, not someone whose legacy is still debated. Thank you.
Thank you for highlighting how the meaning and moral standards of the hero title could shift. That raises a crucial symbolic question. And now let's move on to the potential impact on Indonesia's social and political atmosphere.
For me, the biggest impact is on the social and political atmosphere in Indonesia. Even now, we already see protests, debates, and very emotional reaction. This shows how sensitive the issue is. If the title is actually approved, I think the public reaction will be even stronger. Student groups, human rights activists, and communities who suffered during the New Order might hold demonstration. The issue can easily create tension between groups who see Soeharto positively and groups who see him negatively. Indonesia is a diverse country with different political memories, so a sensitive decision like this could increase polarization. People may argue more, both online and offline, and it can affect the social harmony in society. So, the impact is not only about history, it could affect the present-day stability of society.
Thank you for outlining the possible rise in social tension and polarization. That's an important reminder of the current public mood. To broaden our perspective further, let's hear how this decision might influence Indonesia's global image.
Thank you. Excuse me, in here, I want to talk about how this decision could affect Indonesian image internationally, other countries, but how nations deal with their past, especially when the past involves corruption or human rights issues. If Indonesia gives Soeharto the national hero title, some countries or international organizations may see this as Indonesian ignoring or minimizing past violation. This can affect how they view our commitment to democracy and human rights. It may not anything extreme, but it could influence global perception. International report over the way foreign investors evaluate political stability. Reputation matters in international relations, and this decision could make Indonesia look inconsistent. So, the impact is not just domestic, it affects how Indonesia is seen on the world stage.
Thank you for addressing the international implications and how global perceptions may change. That adds an external dimension to our discussion. And lastly, let's consider the long-term impact on education and public discourse. Sure.
I want to highlight the long-term impact on education and public discussion. If Soeharto becomes a national hero, textbook might start presenting him more positively. Teachers may follow the narrative, and over time, students will grow up with a different understanding of the new order. This affects how young people build their knowledge about democracy and leadership. If the negative side becomes less visible, future generations may not fully understand the importance of accountability or human rights. The same thing applies to public discourse. Media, documentaries, and discussion might also shift toward a softer narrative. Slowly, society may start to normalize or excuse things that should actually be remembered critically. So for me, the impact is generational. It shapes not just how we see the past, but how we understand leadership and justice for the future. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing up the generational impact. Your point shows how this proposal could shape not only how we remember the past, but also how future Indonesians learn about democracy, leadership, and justice. With all perspectives now shared, let's move on to summarizing the key insights from our discussion. This discussion highlighted that granting Soeharto, sorry, okay, cut. The discussion highlighted that granting Soeharto the national hero title would have wide and sensitive implications. Participants noted that it could reshape collective memory, potentially simplifying the new order narrative and overshadowing its authoritarian aspects. Human rights concerns were strongly emphasized, with participants arguing that the title might diminish the experiences of victims and hinder Indonesia's unfinished reconciliation process. Questions about government credibility also surfaced, as the public may doubt whether the decision is objective and transparent. This connects to broader worries about the integrity of hero standards, which could become unclear if controversial figures are honored. Social and political consequences were also discussed, including the potential for increased polarization and stronger public protest. Internationally, the decision might influence Indonesia's global reputation regarding democracy and human rights. Long term, it could affect education and public discourse and shaping how future generations understand the new order. Overall, this group discussion shows that this proposal is not just about Soeharto's legacy, but about Indonesia's values, memory, and future. As the discussion continues, transparency and careful reflections are essential to ensure that the decision aligns with the nation's principle and supports a responsible understanding of history. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.